this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is part 2 of the massive repot, which ought to be renamed repot stroke mount, because I've decided to pull quite a few out. Some are getting tried on a mount on the grounds I know somebody else that's growing them successfully on a mount. Now, bit of bad news, my Shelob Tolkien has had most of the old part of the plant cut off, full of fusarium. I got a feeling it always has been. So the old part that I'm cutting off is the bit with it in, if you see what I mean. The theory being that it should grow out of it. Whether it will or not, I don't know. But I've taken most of the old part off. Both pieces are going to be mounted. That's this piece with the bloom spike and this little piece over here with the distorted bulb. Now that may be as a result of the fusarium, in which case it wasn't treated well enough or didn't stop it and it got into the latest growth. So it's a matter of what happens next. I don't worry too much about fusarium if I've got it, I just treat the plant. It either carries on going downhill and doesn't make it, or it grows through it and comes out the other end and the new bits are okay. And gradually as time goes on the old bits cut off, so get cut off. Right, so the two bits of Shelob Tolkien are getting mounted, but both of those mounts need a hook, so I'm leaving them for a minute. Now I've got in a muddle here, that is my yellow twinkle that was in a pot that just didn't grow very well in a pot. The two pieces that broke off last time when I repotted it that got mounted are storming away. So let's put the rest on a mount. That's got a hook, so I can do that straight away. Now these two, I know what they both are, but I've lost track of which one's which. One of them is the Nellie Isla Red Velvet, I believe. The other one is my Oncidium Sweet Sugar. Which one is which doesn't matter. They're both going on a mount. Eventually they will flower, at which point I'll know which one's which. So at the moment I don't care, I've lost track. And then the other one that's going to get mounted is my little Dendrobium Harvey that's done nothing for about a year. Originally the mother plant was on a mount and did incredibly well for quite a long period of time, and then it just dropped. I think you've heard me use the expression bloomed its head off. It bloomed solid for over a year with virtually no gaps. It just kept putting out spike after spike after spike, and then it just stopped and the plant effectively died. I was lucky there was a couple of kikis. The other kiki got mounted at that time and failed. This kiki got put in a pot and didn't really do anything, but it didn't die. So I'm going to try this back on a mount, basically because it's been sat in a pot for a year and done nothing. So let's try it on a mount. It may sit there for another year and do nothing. But yeah, so this lot are going to get mounted. I'll probably stop the video before I've done all of them. There's no point. I've got zombie moss, and up there I've got my live moss, of which I haven't got a lot actually. I'm going to have to do another trip out, getting a bit thin up there. So the idea being I'm going to use the basics for the zombie moss and then just try and incorporate over the top as I tie it on a little bit of the live moss, because it doesn't need a lot. If it starts to grow it will take over. If it doesn't grow at all then it's still got the zombie moss underneath. So zombie moss is, for those of you who don't know the expression, this is supposed to be treated in such a way that it is dead. Absolutely. But it has been known, especially when used on a mount, to come back to life and start growing again, hence the expression zombie moss. It shouldn't. If it does, it's not the end of the world. It just means their processes are not perhaps as good as they used to be. I'll leave it at that. Now this one's got this little twinkle I think I'll do first. This is going to be easy. Right, where are we then? Stuff. Oh, I always do this up far too tight. Gotcha. Right, so this is going to have to go around a few times, but it's a small mount, so I don't need yards and yards of the stuff. But I'd rather have too much than too little and run out halfway through. That is a nuisance when that happens. It does, you know. I usually end up with half a metre or so left over a lot of the time, which is, you know, I mean, I've got given this fishing line. So anybody who asks me what sort of fishing line is it, I don't know. I was given it. So I've got no idea what breaking strain it is, or what gauge, or whatever you want to call it. I suspect it gets called different things in different countries. Over here it's called breaking strain. From my memories, I used to go fishing when I was a lad, and you buy it on the break weight. So you buy like £10 line, which means if you've got a weight over £10 on it, it's liable to break. The idea being that the thinner the fishing line you can use for what you're trying to catch, the better, because it's, you know, it's less visible if it's thinner. So obviously you go, if you're after, you know, catching some fish 4 or 5 pounds, then, you know, you go for a breaking strain somewhere near that. Not too much higher, because it gets thicker, it becomes more visible. Right, let's see what we can do here. I've got several new growths here, they're all around the front of the plant. So we will get some zombie moss. This is an Oncidium, so it will have quite a bit of moss. You have to, if it was going in a pot, a lot of moss would stay wet a long time. On a mount it won't, it will dry quickly. So you end up going a bit over the top with the moss for something that needs a good bit of moisture when it's growing, like an Oncidium. Whereas some other things, like a Cattleya, say, needs a fast wet dry cycle, so you don't have so much moss because you don't want it to stay wet for too long. You need some, but you know, a bit thinner on the ground, because it's because of the type of orchid. So you don't just swamp it on there regardless of which orchid it is. You bear that in mind. Something missing. Ah! I knew I'd pulled one out. So that's a new one. Oh dear. We might not try that again. I've had worse. Can't remember when. Right, so we've got our moss roughly right, and I'm just going to spread a little bit of live moss over the top. Just a thin layer. And hopefully it will grow. And if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. Right, that's the moss in place. Now we pick that up gently so that we don't knock the moss off, and start getting our fishing line wrapped around in such a way that it holds the roots and the plant firmly, holds the moss in place so that it doesn't all fall off, and this is going to have some slight diagonals, I think, simply because the moss goes up the sides. You see what I'm doing? I'm just doing a diagonal. As long as you keep it nice and tight, it'll be fine. Now, let me just... that plant's not secure. Ugh. Right, so instead of diagonals, we'll unwind, come back 2 turns, and instead of doing those diagonals, we'll go straight across the plant and see if we can hold that a bit firmer. That wasn't very firm at all. And in doing so, by going across the plant, I've achieved the same goal because I've got the tie higher up so it catches the moss. I need another one. This is difficult to work out where to do this, to hold the plant without cutting a leaf off. So I'm just trying to see the gap. I haven't got a free hand at the moment. I need to go round that leaf. Come on, go round that leaf and come back round here. And in through there. See if that will work. Is that any firmer? Yeah, that's better. That's better. So that's got the plant nice and reasonably tight now. It's not incredibly tight, but quite tight. I just need to tie off around the back without letting that slack. Right, for those of you who haven't seen this before, I'll show it now. Where I started with the slip knot and headed off into the wilderness, I've got a V shape. Yeah, the slip knot is this bit, the first turn is there. That V is absolutely perfect for threading your end through and pulling tight against, like so, because it pulls back against your original knot. Now you've got something to tie against, and what you use to tie is the other end of the slip knot, which is just sitting there waiting to go. So it works basically. And I always use a reef knot, which is right over left, left over right, because it doesn't slip. And that is it. And before anybody says, what about a tag? I'm not doing tags today. Too much to do. And I know this is my yellow twinkle. It has a unique shape. Right, so that's the twinkle done. One done. One down. Right, we'll do the little Dendrobium. Now this has got a leafless cane, followed by a weak cane, followed by its best one. So that's its direction of growth. If it's going to push out a new growth, it's basically going to be in that direction. So I'm going to put that over to one side, like that. Yeah? And then it's got the rest of the mount to grow on. So I think that will work okay. So it's just dawned on me, I didn't actually check my camera. I hope this is all in shot. I'll just move it around a bit. I presume it is. Well, you'd have called out if it wasn't, wouldn't you, and told me. You believe anything. God. Where's my end gone? Oh, there it is. Gone from one extreme to the other. Too tight and I have to get the pliers out. Not tight enough. So it fell out basically, so I had to go looking for it. Right, Dendrobium next then. Now this needs to be able to dry quite quickly in the winter so that it doesn't stay soggy. So this won't have as much moss. If it was actively growing, it would, you know, need to be watered frequently to compensate for the fact that it didn't have a lot of moss. But it's not actively growing, it's doing nothing. So I don't want a lot of moss on it, because it will, I mean, luckily this time of year it's going to dry in less than a day, probably no matter how much moss I put on. And irrespective of the fact it's not growing, it's just the temperature in the grow room and the airflow, it's just going to dry. So it doesn't matter that it's not growing, but it will in the winter. With lower temperatures. If it's still not growing by then, I don't want it staying soggy. My mounts can go 2 or even 3 days and not be totally dry in the winter. So right over to one side, like so. So I'm going to have to hold this one while I put the moss on. And some moss, not lots. Just really enough to cover most of the roots. What I like to do with something that needs to dry reasonably quickly but have a little bit of moisture is make sure I can see some of the roots through the moss. If I can't see any of the roots, it's probably a bit too much moss. So I like to just be able to see through some gaps that there are some roots in under there. So that's that. Now we'll have a bit of live stuff, see if that will grow. Like that. That will do. Now I've got a soggy hand. Soggy hand and fishing line does not go together. The fishing line starts sticking to everything you touch. Right. I must admit, when I'm winding on like this, I concentrate more on the moss than I do on the plant. And once I've got the moss, I then worry about the plant, and all I'm going to do is just go around the base. Because I think it's going to be firm. Yes, that's good. It's just had more than enough roots to hold that firm. And as I've got a couple of turns left, I'm going to come down a bit lower and catch the bottom of the roots and the bottom of the moss. The tighter that the roots are held with the moss against the mount, the more likely the new ones are going to attach. It's very rare that existing roots attach to a mount. Unless they've got a nice active growing tip that you can see and they keep growing. The new parts of the root may attach, but the old parts don't normally. They just don't. So you need new roots. Certainly the older, the older roots that are still okay, they still hydrate the plant, but they're not actively growing, they won't attach. They'll just sit there. But they still work, that's the important thing. Now again, I'm not worrying about a tag. I don't even know if it's going to grow. But if it does grow, it'll head off in that direction. So that's 2 done. What else shall I do? I'll do one of the bigger ones. This, looking at the shriveled pseudo bulbs, I've got a feeling this was the Nellie Isla, which means that's the sweet sugar. Oh, I can't remember. At this point in the game, it really doesn't matter. That fits on there quite nicely, and it's got quite a nice hollowed area for where the plant needs to go. If this is going to continue to grow, this will be the bit that puts out the new roots, and the next growth will go this way. So it's got plenty of room. So it can stay on here a while once it's on there. Where's me fishing line? God, too tight again. The pliers really are not here to play around with the fishing line, they're here to deal with getting a hook when I get around to that bit. But as I said, I'm just using mounts that have already got hooks on them, because I can get through quite a few quite quickly. As once I start getting delayed putting hooks on mounts, it almost doubles the time, quite honestly. But I will do one, and then we'll probably call it a day. So I'll show how I do a hook, which is not the same as what other people do. Each to their own. I've been doing mounts a very long time. If I start changing how I do them, they'll take me longer. I do these with very little thought. Very little thought at all. I just get on with it, because I've done so many. And I like it that way. Right, where are we then? So this one's going to tuck in there. New roots are going to come out from that new growth. They're not doing it yet. There's not a sign of any new roots yet, but if they're going to be any, that's where they'll come from. And I'm going to spread these out over the mount quite nicely. And I'm actually going to put one turn round just to hold that in place while I work on some moss. Then I can hold that end in my hand and the plant stays still. Zombie moss first. Again, this is an Oncidium type, so once it starts growing it will need to stay moist, so a little bit heavier on the moss. I'm not so interested in seeing gaps where I can see roots through the gaps. That doesn't matter. You can always sort of look at it along the lines, if you haven't got enough moss you can add some later. If the roots suddenly take off and grow out in all directions and a lot of them haven't got any moss and they're going aerial, well then you can take a bit off and redo your fishing line and grab hold again and pull them in tight. Oops, this is going all over the place. And this is what I was saying about, I was a little unhappy with the last batch of moss I had on the grounds that the reason for this big repot is a lot of media is failing earlier than expected and catching me out. This moss has got a lot of very long strands in it. I would suggest that means it's better quality straight away. Even though it's in the same bag, you get different batches, different people on quality assurance and all that sort of stuff. It can vary. It shouldn't do really, but it does. And I think I had a not too good bag last time round. Leave it at that. Right, so that's a bit of live moss on top. Dry me hand, and I've still got hold of this, so that's still quite tight. Now I can grab hold of everything as I go round. Right, there's the plant. So that plant's actually held quite tight simply because it had quite a good set of roots on it that are nice and flat against the mount and have been pinched by going round and grabbing hold of the moss. So that's gone quite well. You can come off. I hate dangly bits of moss. Right, find my V again. Once you do a few, you'll see that V, and it makes tying off your ends so much quicker and easier, because you know you've got something to pull against straight away. And when you do your slip knot, just make sure you've left enough, because what you leave is what you need to tie with your other end once you finish winding it round. Right, that's 3 done. I wonder how the time's going. It's not taking too long. Right, so that's the 3 that had hooks. Now I'll do one that hasn't got a hook. Let's do the one. See, now most people would have avoided doing that because it's got a bloom spike on. I don't worry too much, quite honestly. The blooms have been out a while, they haven't been out too long. But just going back to these roots, you can see the fail point. They were growing quite nicely, and then they hit the media. Yeah? Now these are still quite firm, so I've left them on. I've got 1 green root tip at the moment, 1. But it's possible this will put out some more. If not, we won't get any more new roots now until the next new growth, which is a while away. But yeah, that's what's going to happen. Now this mount is rather large, but if this plant's going to stay on there, it is a Brassia type, they do grow quite large, so it's going to need room. Right, let's get the hook done. Pays to do your hook first, before you get the plant on. So I just got a little piece that I want to get out of the way, like that. That's where I want to put the screwdriver through. It's a nice thin place. It's also central. That's the other thing, you ought to, before you make your hole, hold the bark loosely where your hole's going to be. Make sure it doesn't do that, go sideways and floppy, yeah, and at an angle. It'll look a lot neater and tidier if it's sort of centrally upright. Now that screwdriver isn't a screwdriver. I've sharpened the end of the blade to make it a cutting blade. So I make a hole, and then I make that hole bigger with a cross head. And by turning that, it sort of eats its way through the original hole, making it bigger. And guess what I haven't got? I'll be back. Can't make a hook without wire, can you? I thought I'd prepared really well this time. Right. So the way I do this is I like my wire coming up the back of the mount, not up the front of the mount. They just seem to hang better back against the rack. So I come in from the back, yeah, and then I go over the top like so, and bend that right down there, and then use the pliers to bring it back up around the bit that's sticking out that's going to become the hook. Now this is actually heavy gauge wire, so it is taking a bit of bending, and then I just pinch that tight, yeah, and that should stay on there, and then this becomes the hook. And I don't normally make the hook, because it's a new hook, until the plant's on there, because I don't know whether I want the hook there, or right at the top. And the chances are, because it's quite a tall plant, in fact I know I'm going to need it right at the top. It's got long leaves, so we'll have the hook at the top. Right, that's the hook done. And as I say, it makes life so much easier if you do the hook before you put the plant on. Otherwise the plant's in the way of everything you're trying to do. It's in the way of trying to make the hole, it's in the way of trying to thread the wire through. It's just in the way. It's better if it's not there. So do the hook first. Makes life easier. Right. What's the time doing? In late tea tonight. I've actually got a chicken that's got to cook. Usually takes me about 2 hours to do a chicken dinner. It's a sort of mini roast dinner, but it isn't really, because I haven't got the roast potatoes or the parsnips. And quite honestly, I'll be happy with some roast chicken some new potatoes, carrots, peas, bit of broccoli and some gravy to make a roast, but without the fuss, you know, without the roast bit, just the chicken. And because it's a whole chicken, it's enough food for me for flipping ages. I mean, I will only use one of the breasts today for my roast dinner, which leaves another one and 2 legs and picking bits. So I can probably sense a curry coming midweek with what's left over, all the bits, not wasting any. Right, so this has got to go on. It's going to have to go that way rather than that way, because if it goes that way, the bloom spike's heading backwards, yeah? Which means it will bash against the rack that it's going to be hooked onto. So it's got to come this way so that the flowers point forward. And I'm hoping they'll arch over so that I can see them nicely. That's my theory. But I need the plant over to the right hand side because the new growth will then be on the left. The blooms are pointing forward, and that leaves plenty of room for the new growths as and when we get them. I'm not sure I'm going to get any more new roots off of this growth, so this plant may well have to survive on the roots that are already there. So let's make sure they're all on the mount, and let's make sure they all get some moss. This is important for this plant to stay hydrated on the grounds that it's only got at the moment 1 active growing root. None of the rest are active. They will hydrate, don't get me wrong, it's not like a rootless plant. Quite honestly, putting a rootless plant on a mount is not the best of ideas. You might be better off like putting it in a pot with some moss to get some roots going and then mount it while those roots are nicely actively growing. Probably take off a bit better that way. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to go on a moss raid again. Of course there's people about now, isn't there? Not that there's anyone goes anywhere near the place where I get my moss. It's just a place that nobody ever goes. I'm sure a few bird watchers may go there, especially in the winter. There are some winter visitors in that area that get the old binocular brigade out there. Anoraks and binoculars, twitchers, bird watchers. If I wanted to go off seeking out and finding birds like that and ticking them off on a list, I would do my absolute best to not look like one. They've got a look about them. I mean, I can even spot them sat in their car before they even get out. They've definitely got a look about them. So I would try and be inconspicuous if I was up to that sort of thing. I am a bird watcher as such, but I don't go out to do it. I do it while I'm out. Subtle difference. So, you know, like if I'm out looking for butterflies to film or some of our native orchids, I've always got my eye out for what birds are around all the time. I mean, the trip out on Friday to see the marsh helleborines, I actually saw 5 red kites during that day. 3 on the way out, 2 together and an odd one, and then another 2 on the way back, which were probably the same 2 I saw on the way out. So maybe I only saw 3. I just happened to see 2 of them twice. Right, so got a reasonably secure plant, hopefully some new roots to come out, some live moss, some zombie moss, and if those new roots come out, whichever direction they go in, they've got moss to grow into. And once that gets on its hook, the bloom is going to lean forward. Actually, the plant's leaning forward a little bit. I'll leave it at that for now, because it's not growing any new roots. So we'll leave that now. So that's 4 mounts done. I've only got 2 more to do. I will finish them in this session, but I'm going to quit the video now and crack on with those 2. What's left in the big tray, apart from 1, is big stuff. So it's the splits of the giant Brassia, it's the Xotoanum, absolute giant again, those are all going in pots, and my Golden Rialto, which is an Odontoglossum type. Pardon me, it's a cool, shadier type plant, that doesn't lend itself to go on a mount. I'm sure it would grow smashing on a mount, but not up in the roof it won't. It's too warm and too bright. So that will go in a pot because of where I need to put it, which is down on the floor basically. So we'll do that one like that. Okay, so that's part 2. That means there will be a part 3, which will be filmed tomorrow. When you see it, it's debatable. I might actually leave that a day or 2 before I post it. Otherwise it's just everything one after the other with all the same plants. So I'll see how it goes, but yeah, part 2 done. Part 3 will be the pots, and that's the big stuff. So we'll do that soon. And hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for dropping by. See you next time. Okay, just tagged on the end. I've decided not to bother with the distorted manky piece of Shelob Tolkien and just keep the good piece, or the piece that looks reasonable, on the grounds that it's an easily replaced orchid if I need to do so, and I just don't like the look of that, so I'm going to dump that. And so therefore this was the last one to do today, whatever it is. I've forgotten, but as I said, you know, I mean, this one is highly likely to bloom on this new growth, whatever it is, so we should find out relatively soon. And we do have a problem, Houston. As I was unwinding the last piece, it suddenly dawned on me, I can see the tag through the fishing line. I don't think I've got much left. So I may have to now go and find out what fishing line this is. There's a fishing tackle shop about half a mile away from me, luckily. We've got some very famous fishing rivers around here on the River Avon, the Royalty. Places like that people pay an absolute fortune just for half a day, you know. So there is a good tackle shop, and all I've got to do is go down with a piece and say, can you tell me what that is and can I have some please? Yeah, so it'll be easily done, and I still don't need to know. I just need it replaced, another one of these. I haven't got a clue how much it'll be, because I say I was given that. So fishing line is on the shopping list now. Next time I go down that way I can call in, take a piece with me and come away with another one like that. I hate to think how long that piece was, you know, because I presume you buy it. That's right, there's actually some writing on there but I can't read it. Got a feeling it says £12 something. Whatever it costs, it doesn't matter. That has lasted me from the very first mount I ever did until soon, because it hasn't run out yet, but soon. So whatever it costs doesn't really matter over a period that long, does it? Right, and once again, see you next time.